Welcome to Hide and Seek TV. It's your boy Hide and Seek, and I've been meaning to do this video for the longest. I have people give me requests, and it's been a long time coming. So I'm going to be breaking this down piece by piece, layer by layer, and I'm gonna be talking about how deep this stuff goes. Because when you understand how deep the masonry is behind all of this. Because growing up, I grew up in a household. My people Jamaican grew up in a household mainly on reggae and old school music, like old R&B and soul music. At the time as a kid, so I remember a lot of this stuff. Hand in hand. So as I'm, going back and looking back at all of blasphemy now, it's just so deep how everything just comes together. So, like I said in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down the temptations, and I'm gonna break down on how deep all of this stuff comes together. What I mean? It's just, it's insane. But first off, what I want to talk about obviously is how the Temptations. Remember back in the day when it was first starting out, remember they used to go by the Elgins, the Pirates, things of that nature. And when you understand the name El, hit the whole theme of Elohim, referring to the Most High, Elohim. So you understand how that goes. And then the pirate theme is very deep because when you understand the pirates and the whole theme of the invasion, but at the same time, remember how the Messiah, is as a thief in the night thing, bringing down Satan's kingdom. So it's high level blasphemy behind all of this because when you know about the the founder of the group, remember you obviously have Williams. And when you understand how deep that goes, remember I said when you translate the Most High's name, I am that I am, hint William, the will of I am, Williams, the will of God. So hint how they was called Otis Williams in the distance at first. Remember with him and Melvin and you had what was his name, Eldridge Bryant and some other guys in the group at the time. So hint the whole theme of the distance because, as it's written in Jeremiah 24:7, and I will give them in heart to know me, that I am the Lord, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God, for they shall return unto me with their whole heart. So, hence the whole theme of the distance, the connecting back with Israel. The Most High says he will gather up his remnant. You see how they started out like that. That's just how everything comes together. So when you understand how deep this goes, remember Eldridge Bryant, who was with them. I think he was one of the tenors at first. During the time they had Paul, Eddie, it was Eldridge, and I think was it Richard, if I'm not mistaken, at that time. Um, with Eldridge, when you understand how deep that goes, and like I said, the name El, and you got Williams, so you have El, Elohim, Eldridge, and remember, he got kicked out of the group because of his behavior. You know what I'm saying? So when you understand how deep that goes, is because remember Melvin was the one who had went to go get what's his name Paul, and he went Paul Williams, and he went to go get Eddie. Remember Melvin? So you understand how that goes. See, Melvin's right there at the front for people who don't know. But when you understand how deep that goes, when he went to go get Eddie, and he got Paul. Remember that? And then he brought them back to Otis, and you remember they formed. That's when they started to really form the Temptation group. Because when you understand the Mel, remember I broke this down before. When the name Mel derives out of Melchizedek, is what? Remember that was during the time of Abraham. Remember I said that was the Messiah figure during the time of Abraham. When I broke this down before. So when you understand how deep that goes, how high level blasphemy these names are, man, and how everything was formed together. It's all, all in high level masonry behind who? Barry Gordy. I'm gonna get to him later on in this video. Because, me being from Detroit, obviously, I've been around Hitsville and all of that, all over there on the boulevard, and this everyone who's from the area already know about how, how heavy the temptations were, especially during that time. And it's deep, So I want to delve heavy into this because when you understand how this goes, remember Eddie Kendricks. I'm gonna get into him heavy in this video. Eddie Kendricks, Eddie don't mean nothing but the wealthy guardian, and how the Messiah is the guardian unto the way unto the kingdom. And the whole theme of getting him with Williams, Paul Williams. You see what I'm saying? And then during that time, once they formed this, they became a powerhouse because when you understand how deep that goes, remember I said Eldridge Bryant was obviously replaced by who? David Ruffin, hint David. And hint El, remember I said El, hint Elohim. and then hint David, hint the whole theme of remember as it's written how David was chosen by God. Remember how deep that goes. Remember I said the Williams, the I am that I am, hint drafting David, hint the whole theme of anointing David, hint the I am that I am, hint Otis Williams getting David Ruffin. Hey, remember that happened right after Eldridge Bryant was taken out the group. That's when they formed the powerhouse. They went to the next level. So you see how deep that goes because hint David connecting with Williams because remember I said this before. Remember as it's written, David is a man after God's own heart. And remember on the I had wrote down this a while back with Dave Chappelle when he was in the car with Morgan Freeman. Remember how Morgan Freeman always plays the God role? How you know how deep that goes when you understand about the car. Because remember I said how he was driving in the car, because remember I said when you translate anointed Messiah becomes Kara, which I mean anointed Messiah. You know what I'm saying? So it all comes together, like that whole David and Williams connection. You know what I'm saying? So when you understand that hint the whole theme of the temptations, because when they got David, remember that's when it was obviously the temptations, that's when they just became the temptations. And remember during the time of David, with Bathsheba, who was Solomon's mother, which was the wife of remember his guard, Uriah the Hittite. Remember as it's written, remember David was lusting after her. Remember he was tempted by watching her, you know, cleanse herself in the tub. Remember that. So hit the whole theme of witnessing her, you know, bathing in the tub, and the whole theme of the lust. And remember through that came the death of Uriah. Remember how he had Uriah taken out because David knew the law about, you know, the whole thing of a man, you know, when he was married a wife, that'd be adultery. So you see how he had him taken out so he can try to, you know, get Bathsheba during that time. Remember the judgments, everything came upon David. I'm gonna explain that in a moment. And they remember the Messiah was tempted by Satan. Remember when he was led up to the top of the mountain, and Satan wanted him to cast himself down and worship him instead of, you know, being fulfilling his mission for the Most High. And the whole theme of how deep this stuff goes, all the connection. So you remember how deep it is, because remember when David Ruffin, remember he started getting this ego going on. Remember the whole thing with the drugs and things of that nature. Remember Otis Williams, remember they all kicked him out the group. Remember Otis really was the one who banished him from the group. And the whole theme of the judgments coming upon David. Remember after David committed that act with Bathsheba, remember how the Most High brought judgments upon him. Remember that. So I'll play a quick clip and I'm gonna chime on in. Just pay attention to this.
Man, tell me I'm back in the group, man. Tell me I'm back. No, you ain't in this group. Don't you get it? You blew it.
Crowd went wild when he went on stage.
He's the one who blew it, Corn.
See how deep that goes. The whole theme of the banishing of David, kicking him out the group. So you see how deep that stuff goes. There's no way around this. And then what came after he left the group? Remember, he had his solo album in '69. Remember, it was called My Whole World Ended. Hit the whole theme of falling to the temptation. And then came great judgment against him. My whole world ended. Hint David crying out in repentance. This stuff is heavy. And remember, during that time too, remember I had the deep breakdown on Tammy Terrell. I'm gonna put that in the comment section below. And I'm gonna put my Detroit breakdown in the comment section below, and I'm gonna put my Michael Jackson's breakdown in the comment section below, my whole series on that. But when you understand how deep this goes, hit the whole theme of David Ruffin, man, with Tammy Terrell. And remember how that stuff was going on with her and Marvin Gaye. Remember when they were together? And remember how it's deep because what I want to talk about this right quick too is when you understand how deep this stuff goes, how him and David, you know, him and Tammy Terrell had the situation going on, you know, their relationship, and how a lot of stuff was going on between that in the media, you know, a lot of abuse, etc. But when you understand how deep that stuff goes, how she leaves away from David, remember, and joins up. Remember, her and Marvin Gaye was together, and they had that song "Ain't No Mountain High Enough" in 1967. So when you understand the 6'7", remember when I broke this down before, As it's written in that day, there should be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar at the border thereof to the Lord. And it should be for a sign and for a witness unto the Lord of hosts, which are a shadow of things to come. But the body is of Yahushua, aka Christ. The top of the altar is measured at 76 degrees, foreshadowing the kingdom to come. And remember when I said when it's 6-7, that represents the reversal of like having, 7 is a number of spirit, 6 is a number of flesh, so hence 7 is exalted above spirit. And then when they do 6-7, it's representing the flesh trying to be exalted above the spirit. Flesh is a number, flesh number is 6. I remember in Matthew 26:67, remember I broke that down, how that's when they was beating up the Messiah within the Sanhedrin, and when they was slapping him and beating him up. So hint the 6-7 right there. So notice how ain't no mountain too high enough, because when you understand that hint as it's written, Messiah standeth upon Mount Zion. You feel what I'm saying? He should stand upon Mount Zion. And I want to break this down because in Revelation 12, remember when I broke this down about the Messiah, this is why in the 60s, when Obama was born in 61, in the 60s era, the 60s was high level and like the whole theme of like the delusion and the falling in love, and cast yourself down. And in the 70s is when, remember, I broke this down about how the 70s, notice everything was like higher spirited music. It was a huge transition in the music sense. In the 70s, you had like, it was high level soul music. You had like, Marley rose up, Shaka Khan, um, go on and on for days. Even the Temptations music, it's how they went from like, that the My Girl songs in like the 60s and like the 70s, you had like the Papa Was a Rolling Stone and all of those songs. Everything was shifting into a higher spirit because and when I broke this down as it's written, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 crowns upon his head, sought to destroy the man child as soon as he was born, because a child was promised to rule the kingdom of God that is coming, being caught up into the throne of God. So when you understand 7 times 10, it's obviously the 70s. Remember I said this, everybody already knew about the United Union, pertaining to the dragon with the 7 heads. But hence 7 times 10 is the 70s. Remember when I broke this down about 76, in 1976, the birth of Messiah. You know what I'm saying? So when you understand this, and the whole thing why the sun burns at 5,776 degrees. So it's no way around it. And as it's written, the kingdom of God rises like the sun unto the west. So it all comes together. That's why they had that ain't no mountain too high enough in 67. And then when you understand that hint in 1973, remember I said as it's written that the dragon sought to destroy the child as soon as he was born. Just like it was the first time with King Herod, with the Hebrew babies massacre, everybody under the age of 2 and under. So hence how the abortion became legal in 1973 during the time of Richard Nixon. Hence, in 1973, you got the song "Hey You, Get Off My Mountain." So it's no way around none of this. So the whole connection with how Tammy Terrell, remember how she departs away from David, and with all the stuff going on with that, and then how you got I had broke this down before because remember Marvin Gaye went into a deep stage of depression after that situation happened with Tammy, being knocked off the scene, because like I broke it down before, remember how Marvin Gaye's music was heavy into like crying out. Remember the songs like Distant Lover, a lot of those songs was crying out, Remember I had broke this down in the video about Orpheus and Eurydice in the Greek mythologies. Remember how the man Orpheus was crying when Eurydice had died. And remember he was willing to do whatever it took to go back to her. Remember how she was dead and everything in the afterlife. And remember how Orpheus had got killed by his own father because he was crying out. And he was saying he had a heart crying out for Eurydice. And remember the situation with Marvin Gaye with his father and getting slain during that time after the whole situation with Tammy Terrell years down the line, obviously, but the whole story that they play out, you know what I'm saying? All high level masonry, man. It's nowhere around none of this. So notice why David Ruffin, how he died off in Philadelphia. And as it's written, and to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write these things, saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David, he that openeth and no man shutteth, shutteth and no man openeth. So hence how David dies in Philadelphia. Hence Messiah has the keys of David to open the kingdom of God. So it's no way around none of this. Hey, remember how they had said that he, died off with, with the drugs. And when you understand how, hint crack rock. Remember in the 80s, I broke that down before my 1980s breakdown. How crack rock, hint the whole thing, how the Messiah is the stone, the rock. And remember when Moses split the rock, remember that's when Moses missed out and entering the promised land. So hint how they had to make David, they say, oh yeah, he dies off by, the crack rock. You know what I'm saying? It's that deep, man. Because hint Messiah is the rock, the stone, and hint the whole theme of dying off on the powder, the breaking up of the rock. Like it's that deep, man. It's that real, you know. So hint how remember after the go back a little bit. Remember Dennis Edwards replaced David Ruffin. And I want to take it deep because when you understand Dennis, remember the name Dennis, Dennis don't mean nothing but the servant of Dionysus. Now I'm going to break this down because remember how he replaced David. So when you understand the Greek god Dionysus, the Greek god Dionysus is the god of wine and of partying, and which is high level blasphemy. It's nothing but Satan blaspheming as the Son of God, and how the Messiah's blood is as wine, and how he brings joy and restoration of the kingdom. All Dionysus is would make it all in a sense of masquerading and making the wine become provocative and making the party and in a sense of like the rejoicing in God become wild party ritualistic madness. So you notice how that's why they had to have Dennis replace David. It's all, like I said, it's all blasphemy of, the Messiah, Son of God thing. So when you look at that, and Dionysus, remember I broke this down before the weekend, how he played the role of Dionysus. And the song Save Your Tears, how he had the bruised up face and things of that nature, because Dionysus, every party, they used to do a huge sacrifice, and the women used to cry over him. You know what I'm saying? The women would cry because he would die off every time. So, as is written in Ezekiel 8:14, then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz, aka Dionysus. And as you can see, why the weekend had the bruised face, because in Revelation 16:2, and the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which had worshipped his image. So, and that whole thing, you know. So that is that real, like I said. But what I want to talk about, I want to explain a little bit more. Remember, Dennis, my fault, Dennis Edwards had the song "Don't Look Any Further." This was a huge hit back in the day, and I'm gonna play it in a second. But remember, Tupac and Biggie and all of that had the sample of the song. Remember, Tupac made the song "Hit 'Em Up." And when you understand how deep, this is why the sampling is heavy, because it's all high level masonry. None of these songs are sampled for no reason, just because it make a good noise. All fulfilling the ritual. It's all fulfilling the plot and the agenda. Because remember, my point is how Tupac, Biggie, remember how they had that false stage, war between the East and the West during the 90s. Because when you understand the Messiah, remember I said the 1976 birth, the 90s would be obviously what? The teenage era. And remember during the time of the scriptures, remember Messiah as the teenager was leveling up in the wisdom in the temple. So you see how they had, as it's written, how he's shining from the east unto the west. So, hence why they had to have that fake war between the East and the West Coast. And Tupac had the song Hit 'Em Up sampled by Dennis, which all goes back to what I was talking about. the whole theme of what? The temptations. The whole theme of trying to lead, Messiah and coming through the house of David. And Messiah comes through the house of David. And how they had to try to do that because it was all the way to attacking to try to prevent Messiah from rising up. They want it's just like the movie It. Remember when I broke this down a billion times? How Pennywise the clown represent Obama and how Billy represented the Messiah. I am that I am, William, Bill, Billy, short for William. I remember his brother's name was Georgie, which don't mean nothing but the farmer. Hint, David plants the seed. So it was all like allegory of David, Messiah coming through the house of David, trying to save his people. And, Pennywise trying to distract, what I mean, Messiah and want him to cast himself down. They always think Messiah gonna be tempted. Hint the whole theme of, you will float too, Billy. Cast yourself down, you know. So that's what this whole thing was about. That's why in the 90s they did that stage East Coast West Coast beef. Notice the gains rose up in the 90s even stronger. That was after the crack era. And then notice how like I said, Messiah shining from the east and the west. That's why they had to have a war between east and the west. And then they, staged the fake deaths with Biggie Pac and, bring in a new era which came what? The drunken on the wine, the lean, and the whole theme of the crunk era in the 2000s. So that's just how all this stuff comes together. So like I said, I'm gonna play it really quick. Um, Pay attention to this. That beat, so people who ain't know the song, the hit 'em up sample. And the lady on here, her name was what's her name? Saida, I think her name was Saida Garrett. She's on the song. And she actually was a writer for Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, which is deep because remember remember I broke this down before about the looking Alice in Wonderland, the looking glass. Remember I broke that down and about how that man in the mirror is all symbolic because what Michael Jackson was talking about was like the Messiah, coming into fulfilling the prophecy. Remember how they used to have the old, hit Messiah look into the mirror because as it's written that the kingdom of God is as like his throne is upon a sea of glass. So hence the whole theme of that, the man in the mirror, seeing his reflection of who he's about to become. You know? That's why on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, remember I broke down the name Charlie. Charlie is Chuck is short for Charlie. Hint a Chuck is a pulley system used to raise up stones. Messiah must be uplifted above all. Hint the whole theme of Chuck was God on Supernatural. So hint the theme of Charlie looking in the mirror and he got to say grace. And then on the Purge, remember how Charlie was the kid on there and he always had the camera because as it's written that everything is recorded. You know what I'm saying? Everything in heaven is recorded against you. And how Charlie was basically being called by his mom, and then they said what? They said the name God after that. So there's no way around it. And then hint the whole theme on Highway to Hell. The king of the road is about to meet the prince of darkness. The king of the road name was Charlie versus Satan. I remember I already broke it down about Kara being an anointed Messiah. So there's no way around none of this stuff. It all comes together. So like remember in the time, remember when David Ruffin left the Temptations, Dennis Edwards, Eddie Kendrick, they all left the Temptations. Remember they formed a group. Remember that. So there's just no way around none of this, like at all. So I want to just keep this thing rolling. I want to get even deeper right quick if y'all mind me talking. Because Paul Williams, I'm gonna get deep. Excuse that. But Paul Williams for the Temptations, right? Paul Williams for the Temptations in 1973. Remember they said that he, you know, offed himself due to censorship. He offed himself in a car by Belle Isle, Belle Isle River. So out in Belle Isle. So the whole thing, people don't know it's just like a riverfront. So when you understand how deep that goes, Williams, remember how it says how Messiah sacrifices himself for the sake of the people. I'm about to get deep because Hint 1973. Remember I said it was the time of the abortions coming on the scene. And we already had the song that came out that year, Hey You, Get Off My Mountain. Hint Messiah standing on Mount Zion. Remember Satan wanted Messiah to cast himself down off the mountain. You feel me? So let's take it even further. You know, Williams offs himself by the river because when you understand how deep that goes, remember during the time of Messiah preparing for his crucifixion, as it's written, but I have a baptism to be baptized with. And Messiah going through the blood sacrifice, how I am straightened till it be accomplished. Hint preparing for death. So hint the whole theme of Williams by what? By the river. And you remember I said offing himself in the car, hint Kara, Messiah, the anointed Messiah. So it's like no way around none of this. Right before 1976 hit the scene. So let's take it deep because I want to play the song right quick if y'all don't mind me. You know, like I said, talking. Because this right here is probably one of the before the time of like the blasphemy at the time that I was you know, when I used to listen to stuff, probably one of my this, you know, Cloud Nine, you know, by Temptations, which was nothing but blasphemy of Messiah, you know, as it's written how he behold he cometh with clouds, and how Satan try to use the clouds to make you float away and be your own God, look up into the sky and things of that nature. You know, all blasphemy of Messiah coming with the clouds. Israel being the cloud there is, and as it's written. Remember I said how in 1976 the Apple and Microsoft cloud was formed. You know what I'm saying? It's just that's showing how as we know he is as a man, it's no way around this. I've been doing this for a year. You know, as it was the first time, it should be again. So it's no way around it. But as I was saying anyway, this song, Just My Imagination, was all about Messiah. They was just blaspheming, basically trying to say, it's my imagination that I can be with the bride of Israel. You feel what I'm saying? That I'll be able to be with the bride of Israel, that we can fulfill the kingdom. We have children, hint the whole theme of you know, as it's written how the children of God will be in the kingdom, you know, via the marriage. Remember, as it's written, the new kingdom, New Jerusalem, through the marriage and gaining back of the bride Israel with the Messiah. So I'm gonna play this clip. Listen to this.
To have a girl like her is truly a dream come true.
You see that? This is deep. I'm gonna play a little longer, y'all. Just bear with me.
Out of all of the fellas in the world, she belongs to me.
He belongs to me, but it's just my imagination. Let me skip right through it. All right, hear this. This is deep because I'm about to get deep on y'all if y'all don't mind me, you know, breaking this down. Listen to this.
Every night on my knees I pray.
On my night, every night on my knees I pray, dear Lord, hear my plea. I remember I said about Messiah preparing for his crucifixion. And the whole thing, hear my plea, Lord. Remember when Messiah got crucified? Remember what did he tell the Most High upon the cross? He said, which is being interpreted, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Remember that. So hint the whole thing, dear Lord, I cry out unto you. There's no way around none of this stuff, man. Listen to how deep this goes.
Don't ever let another take her love from me, or I would surely die.
Don't let another take her love from you, or I would surely die. And the whole thing with Messiah going through the crucifixion, they was already setting this up because Paul was getting ready to get taken off the stage, man. You know what I'm saying? There's no way around none of this. Hint Messiah sacrificed for his work, his own self for the sake of Israel, for the sake of the world. And the whole thing, how Paul does that by the river. Hint preparing for my baptism. Don't let her take my love from you, I'll surely die. This was one of Paul's last songs sung with the Temptations. One of the last hits.
Heavenly.
Her love is heavenly.
When her arms enfold me, I hear a tender rhapsody, but in reality
She doesn't even know me. Remember, as it's written, how Israel lost their remembrance of their father. And the whole thing, for they should return unto me with their whole heart, and I will be their God, and they should be my people. Hint that she doesn't even know me. Israel don't even know who their God is. Hint, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, man. Is that real? Hint the song Brother Louie. You see the pyramid right there, and it was all about nothing. The song is all about nothing but Satan basically taking away the bride Israel. You know, and the whole theme that out of all the fellas in the world, she belongs to me. That's what the Popeye versus Brutus was about. Popeye was Messiah, and Brutus was Satan battling over olive oil, aka Israel, the olive tree, the olive branch. Listen to this really quick.
Live together, try.
You see them in the mirror, how the girl in the mirror? Look at that. Under the sun. You see that battling over the altar. Remember, I was talking about that earlier, the altar. Go back, y'all. Right here. Just all in our face, man. Hint Brother Louis, because Louis, when you translate praise the Lord, becomes Louis eternal. Let's talk about it. Who replaced Paul Williams? And who replaced Williams? Let's talk about it. Richard Street. Now I'm gonna get deep because Richard's wife name was Carolyn during that time. Remember when I said when you translate Carol, it becomes out of what? It comes out of Kara, which don't mean nothing but anointed Messiah. During the time of him, with the Temptations era, he was with Carolyn. No way around none of this. And Richard don't mean nothing but what? It means, remember like Dick Cheney and all of that. It means like, Dick Cheney, hint, the rod, the penis thing. Hint Messiah, the most high, the rod, the ruler of the kingdom, the rod, the penis. That's why I use like Dick Cheney for censorship. But anyway, hint the whole thing. Remember you had one of the old shows, a brother had sent me this. And you had Ricardo, hint Richard, which I mean the rod, the penis thing. You got Carol and you had Adam, and they was battling against Satan. I think this was called the Fantasy Island, if I'm not mistaken. A brother, people who sent this out to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, hint the whole thing, hint Carol, Adam, and Ricardo. So it's just no way around why he had to replace Williams, and his wife name was Carolyn. Like, get out of here. Come on, man. Let's talk about Barry Gordy for a minute. Notice how his cousin is Jimmy Carter, right? His cousin is Jimmy Carter, man. That's why I said all these people are connected. All of them. All nothing but boule Freemasonry, man. So you understand how deep this goes, the bloodline. Just like how the old pharaohs, everybody was in the royal bloodline. That's the only ones who had a chance to be the pharaohs. The same thing with this. So you see how deep that goes. And then look at that. Barry Gordy, Barry, Barack Obama, Barry. You know what I'm saying? And that's why during the 60s is when Motown took over. Because the 60s, that's when Obama was born, 61. We already broke this down about his role upon the earth. There's no way around it. I've been breaking this down pertaining to the Antichrist. I've shown this millions of times. So it's like, come on, man. Hint Barry Gordy, and then you got the Jimmy Carter, because remember Carter is blasphemy of Messiah, hint Kara. And then Jimmy is short for Jacob. That's why in 1976, Jimmy Carter had to win in Hawaii. The first ever presidential election was taken in Hawaii. I mean, well, it was in Hawaii, my fault. So notice how deep that goes. There's just no way around this. And you remember David Ruffin's brother name was Jimmy. And he also died in Philly. Remember I read that earlier. The church and the angel of Philadelphia write these things, say, if he that is holy, he that is true, he that have the key of David, that openeth the kingdom. So it all comes together, man. That's why Michael Jackson had to be signed to Berry Gordy as a kid because that was all showing the theme how Messiah is born in Obama's world and rises up out of it. That's why Michael Jackson was constantly fighting for creative rights and Messiah fighting for his kingdom. Remember in Daniel 12 it says that Michael shall come before the time, in a time like none other during the time of the great deliverance of Israel. Covered this millions of times. There's no way around it. I want to end this right here. Thank you for watching Hide and Seek TV. Much more is coming. Peace.